Hello boys and girls, welcome to Mrs. Bandu's Math Movies. This is for algebra, lesson 3-1, solving two-step equations. So our objectives are to solve two-step equations and use deductive reasoning. Okay, just a quick recap on solving two-step equations. Our first step is generally to use the addition or subtraction property of equality to get the term with a variable alone on one side of the equation, or to isolate the variable. Step 2 is use the multiplication or division property of equality to write an equivalent equation in which the variable has a coefficient of 1, even though we oftentimes don't write that coefficient. Actually, we generally don't. Okay, so I already have some of this filled out, so I will try not to go too quickly. Or you can fill it in and then replay or pause to be sure that you've processed everything correctly. So if we're going to solve, 21 is equal to the opposite of p plus 8. The first thing we'll do is subtract 8 from each side. So 21 minus 8 equals the opposite of p plus 8 minus 8. 21 minus 8 is 13 on the left-hand side. The opposite of p is what we get on the right-hand side when we simplify. Then we're going to use the multiplication property of equality and multiply each side by -1. Again, that's because we want the coefficient on the p to be a +1. So -1 times the opposite of p is p, and -1 times 13 is -13. So p equals -13 is the solution. To check, we substitute in -13 for p. So is 21 equal to the opposite of -13 plus 8? Well, when I do the opposite of -13, which is 13, plus 8, I get 21. So it checks. Again, if I talked through that too quickly, please pause, fill in, and then go back and review. There are some quick check questions here. I'm going to continue on with our next example. You decide when you want to fill in the quick check questions. Okay, solving two-step equations. You order iris bulbs from a catalog. The iris bulbs cost 90 cents each. The shipping charge is $2.50. If you have $18.50 to spend, how many iris bulbs can you order? Okay, so what we have here is just a little scheme of how these numbers fit together. The cost of per iris times the number of iris bulbs you buy, plus the shipping is going to equal the amount to spend. Something I always want you to do, whether or not the directions explicitly stated, is to define your variable. Okay? So here we're going to say let B equal the number of bulbs you can order. So from that we'll put together an equation. 0.9 or 90 cents times B, the number of bulbs, plus $2.50 shipping is equal to $18.50 because that's how much you have to spend. And then I'm just going to go ahead and solve for B. So 0.9B plus $2.50 equals $18.50. We'll subtract $2.50 from each side, and we get 0.9b equals 16. Our next step is to divide each side by 0.9. When I do that, I get b is equal to 17.7 repeating. Okay, so the next thing we need to ask ourselves, is the solution reasonable? You can only order whole iris bulbs. Since 18 bulbs would cost 18 times 90 cents or $16.20 plus $2.50 for shipping, which is more than $18.50. You can only order 17 bulbs. So here, again, the number gets us close. The solution actually gets us close to the answer to the question. You have to use some common sense and logic here. You can't order fractional bulbs. All right, and using deductive reasoning, we want to solve 3 minus 5z is equal to 18 and justify each step. Deductive reasoning is just having a reason to follow the process. We're doing this because of that. Okay, so for example, we start out with 3 minus 5z and we're going to subtract 3 from each side. So that's going to bring down the opposite, or negative 5z. Okay, so this minus sign is now going to act like a negative sign, is how I remembered it. That's probably not technically correct, but it actually kind of does a trick for you there. Helps you keep the signs correctly. 18 minus 3 is 15. Oh, and I take that back. By definition of subtraction, that could be fine, because this is plus negative 5z. So instead of writing that out, I just apply it in my head and bring down the negative 5z. Sorry for the confusion. I will divide each side now by negative 5 using the division property of equality. So z is equal to 15 divided by negative 5 is negative 3. Again, on all of these, remember you can check by simply substituting back your solution into the original equation and evaluating. Your two sides should come out to be equivalent. If they do, your solution should be correct. All right, so you now have 2 more quick checks to answer. Please have these ready next time we meet in class. And also, please bring in any questions you may have. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.